1. So we had a guest who was diabetic, who was there with 2 other people, woman and man. The woman comes up to me and asks for a biscuit and some orange juice, and I run to get it. I give it to her, she takes it back to her table, and all is well. For about 5 minutes. The man comes up to me about 5 minutes later. "Can you call an ambulance?" I panic and tell him, of course, and I sprint into the kitchen, tell my manager, and pick up the to-go phone to place the call. Now, to be clear, this is the first time I've ever had to call EMS, as I am only 17, so I was understandably nervous. The dispatcher says they will be at the restaurant very shortly. Great. After the call is placed, word gets around the kitchen and almost everything reaches a standstill. At this point, our top priority is to get this lady to the hospital safely. We moved tables out of the way, and we were really busy. I'll get back to this later. But customers were very compliant. We move chairs and clean tables, and my one manager goes to the family to watch them, while the other waits outside for EMS to arrive. Now, I'm a host, so my next task was to alert everyone on the wait that it will be longer, as we have to stop everything until it's taken care of. I go to the podium with my co-worker and I use the PA system to alert everyone that 1. The wait will be delayed by 20 to 30 minutes. The wait was already at 20 minutes. 2. They need to clear the main path for a stretcher to come through. The path immediately cleared and everyone was, once again, very compliant. A minute or 2 passes and the ambulance has arrived, and all customers already sitting have caught on that something was going on. At this point, a man walks up to me. At the time, I was not focused on him, but the stretcher coming through the door, just to make sure no one was in the way. The man then asks me something I wish I was paying attention to. "We have been waiting for around 15 minutes now. When are we going to be sat, and how are we going to be compensated?" My focus shifts to him, not really noticing the last part. "I'm terribly sorry, sir. We need to help this guest who needed an ambulance, and then we can get you sat," I tell him. He responds by saying, "This is a terrible way to treat guests. We will wait for no more than 10 minutes, or we are leaving." I say, "Okay," and he walks away. It takes me a minute to register that this man just asked me why they were waiting so long, after I announced the situation on the PA. I also want to make it clear that I was watching the stretcher come through the door before the man started whining. By this point, they were entering the dining room and the servers watch as the lady is taken away. After resetting everything, the restaurant was in a bad state. All of our open tables were dirty and half of those who were waiting left, because by the time the ambulance left, their times were around 40 minutes. Yikes. For the rest of the day, I was ranting about that one man to everyone, however. I get he was waiting around 20 minutes, but the restaurant was completely full, and we couldn't do anything about it at the time. I don't understand how you can put yourself above someone who could potentially be in a deadly situation. I didn't tell anyone why the EMS were coming, just for the privacy of the family. I wanted to tell the man something along the lines of, "You can go to Burger King. I'm sure you won't have to wait for EMS over there." My manager told me that if I yelled in that situation that I wouldn't get in trouble, because some idiot thinks he's high and mighty. 2. So I'm a hostess on the weekends and a server during the week at a local pizzeria and pub. With it being both, we have both tables and a bar, of course. The restaurant is divided up so that there are some tables next to the bar. These we refer to as bar tables because they're at the bar. Many guests, however, like to seat themselves there as they think the tables are part of the bar and not the restaurant. I have had to give the same speech many times, and the number has indeed cleared up. I recognize the regulars that like those tables and immediately seat them where they like. But the problem is, as hostess, I have to know where people sit so the servers aren't scrambled. Some people can sit at the bar tables for over an hour and not be served because we get really busy. However, this party was not like the rest of the self-seaters. I was in the restaurant area, only divided by a wall and the booths are against, cleaning tables because along with being a hostess I bus and do all miscellaneous jobs the bartenders and servers need me to do, since we get busy. Anyway, I was cleaning some booths when a man asks me if it's okay to sit somewhere. I turn around and this party of 6 is standing around a table set for 5. I get really confused right away. There is a sign right at the front that says, "Please wait here to be seated," right at the hostess stand, which is often missed by those going to the bar tables but never to the restaurant. I stumbled on words while trying to figure out how they had missed the sign and felt that they needed to seat themselves, but said they could sit as soon as I set it up for them. The adult male looked back at the table and realized it wasn't set up for 6. As soon as I said that, though, the daughter ran over to the table that had just left and stole a chair from there. Thank goodness it was one of the spare chairs, or I would have gotten more mad. I'm very adamant about keeping the right number of chairs at a table and using the spares when we needed more. OCD, perhaps. The table sits, and I warn the server who's up about their behavior, as I was shocked they sat themselves in the dining area, and completely ignored all signs saying not to. I don't take long to get to the front when I'm cleaning either. Every chance I get, I look to the door to see if people are there. So the group had obviously not waited at the area it said to at all. Later in the night, we're settling down from our usual busy weekend day, and I asked the server how the table is. She said they were behaving fine and I was happy. No more problems, right? Wrong. Later, the table had finished and wanted their check. Instead of asking someone passing by, they got up, like just walked around. The adult male went to the front, and as hostess, I went to see why they were there. I immediately recognized them and asked if they needed any help. The dude asked for their waiter because he was ready for the check. The whole family was gathering around the door. I was afraid for a moment they would leave without paying. The server brings the check and everything is dealt with. And they are out the door quickly. My problem with this table is, first they sat themselves in the dining area, helped themselves to the surrounding tables as I told them I would be helping them, and then the entire family gathered at the door once they were done. I found this extremely rude, and it may just be me, but I am in charge of keeping things organized on those hectic nights. And I for sure do not think that if every table gathered at the door when they were ready to pay, things would be easier. No way. Like I said, we've had other self-seaters before. This table just really got on my nerves. This happened just this last weekend, last Saturday. They were apparently a fine table to the servers, so I can't complain about that. But the way they acted was, I feel, incredibly immature. I've had people come up to me before asking for servers, saying they were ready for their checks, but never entire families, wandering around the restaurant like a flock of geese, asking for the same thing. I deeply respect those who send only one person up and decide not to clog the entryways with their 6-person family. Thank you for listening. 3. This was 6 years ago at my old delicatessen-style breakfast and restaurant job. Hours are posted on the door and online. I was with my manager at the time. We closed at 3 p.m. We didn't serve dinner. A couple came in 10 minutes before we closed and ordered well-done burgers. I told them to help themselves to our complimentary pickle bar while they wait for their food. Also because the pickles were about to be put away for the day. They get their pickles, I'm finishing my closing side work, my manager is eating her shift meal. All is normal for now. Well, the burgers come out and the couple complains that the burgers are too well done. They actually wanted medium well, so I take their food back and the cooks, who started shutting down the kitchen, are pretty pissed off. By the time I get their new medium well burgers out, we've been closed for about 30 minutes, which is around the time average latecomers are usually paying for their checks and leaving. This time the burgers are not well done enough, so I take the burgers back, and the cooks are pissed again since they started cleaning the grill again. The couple also wants more pickles, which have been put away. So I have to go to the back to get an assortment of pickles. My manager intervened at this point, insisting she serve the burgers to the customers and informing them that we've been closed for almost 40 minutes, and have shut the kitchen down. So if they're unhappy with how their burgers turned out, she would happily comp their meals, but she would not remake their meals. She says that the burgers are cooked perfectly now and they start chowing down. 1 hour and 10 minutes after closing, I drop their checks off and tell them they can pay on their way out. They asked for fresh coffee, which meant they did not intend on leaving soon. So I brew coffee and adjust their check and leave it on the table along with their cups of coffee. 1 hour and 40 minutes later, my manager asks them if she can at least take their payment so she can close down the system, which they agree to do. She goes to the back to count the drawer, and they ask for more coffee. I ask if there's anything else they need because I'm about to shut down the server station, and they ask about dessert. I tell them I cannot sell them anything else because my manager already shut down the system. They seem upset and surprised, and said that I should have asked them if they wanted dessert because they plan on staying for a while. 2 hours after closing, The couple are on speakerphone with someone bragging about how they're the only ones at the restaurant, and the guy they're on the phone with says, "Don't they close at 3?" They say, "Not for us." At this point, they watched us put the pickles away, they watched the kitchen staff leave, they watched my manager take the drawer to the back, the music was turned off, the lights are off, chairs are on tables, and this couple asks for more coffee. My manager is ready to go, I'm ready to go. So my manager calls the owner and he gives her the okay to kick them out. 2 hours and 10 minutes after closing, my manager asks them to leave, telling them we've been closed since 3. They seem shocked. "You're not open for dinner? Are your hours on the door? We're sorry, we literally had no idea you were closed. We thought you closed and reopened for dinner. Do you close at 3 every day? We had no clue you were closed." I don't miss that part of the service industry. 4. Please be aware, those who like to snack during the stories, the following tale is the saga of a mad pooper. I work at a restaurant where the employees are overworked and underpaid. Despite this, everyone is cool with each other and management. The evils that mess up our day are the customers and our by-the-book district manager, who drops by every now and then. For about 3 months, we had someone in the men's bathroom come in and smear an ungodly amount of fecal matter all over the handicap stall. Even sometimes they'll fling scat outside of the stall onto another toilet or a wall. Of course, the management sends one of us peons to clean it up. Fortunately for me, I never had to as I worked the cash register. The one co-worker, who we'll call Arthur, was who I'd call the personification of pettiness. He was crazy and had a smart mouth, and an explosive temper when pushed too far. Me and Arthur were cool, I never had problems with him. But management always had him clean out the bathroom when it was poo smeared. One day, Arthur came in on his day off to get some food. After placing his order, he went to use the restroom. While there, he heard someone moan and groan, having a massive shitstorm in the handicap stall. He didn't think too much of it, even when he smelled that god-awful scent. An older gentleman, around 50, exited the stall. Arthur came out and noticed the smell was even stronger than before. Curious, he peeked into the stall and noticed the poop smears all over the place. Infuriated, he asked the old man if he had done that and why would he even? The old guy said with a scat-eating grin, "Look, I don't care. I just want to ruin some poor fucker's day." Arthur was set the fuck off, as he was that poor fucker. Initially, Arthur wanted to clock the guy then and there. But in his own words, time slowed down around him, and all he saw was red. Arthur didn't say anything to the man. Instead, he washed his hands and sat back down waiting for his food. He sat on the opposite end of the restaurant, but the location provided an overview of the entire floor. He could see that old guy at his booth munching away like nothing happened. Of course, someone complained that there was poop smeared all over, and one of the other employees that Arthur was cool with had to go clean up the mess. Arthur caught the old guy looking on at the situation and grinning to himself. Seeing that, Arthur thought the man needed to be taught a hard and hurtful lesson. The old guy finished his food and drove home. Little did he know that Arthur was following him. He ends up following the old guy to his home and stakes it out for an hour. Arthur does this for a couple of weeks, following him home, learning about this guy as quick as possible. Even on days off, he drove over to where he lived and followed him to the booth of the restaurant, and to his, old guy's, company. Arthur's gotten a rough idea of the guy's work and sleep schedule, so it was time to enact his revenge. Going by the information he acquired about the guy's activities and the neighborhood he lived in, Arthur figured out this guy lived well enough to survive, but had no means of backup if something were to happen. Arthur had a 3-part plan for him. First act, in the dead of night, Arthur went to the old guy's house. He slashed one of the tires. The old guy drove a Jeep, so Arthur opened the spare tire compartment and poked a small hole in it. The old guy woke up the following morning to find his tire flat. According to Arthur, the old man was on the phone freaking out because he was going to be running late for work, and really didn't have the money to get a new tire. Not only that, to Arthur's surprise, The old guy didn't know how to change a tire. The old guy spent nearly 2 hours in the hot Texas morning heat on the phone with someone who knew how to put the spare tire on. This is important for later in this act. At this point, Arthur is foaming at the mouth with excitement. The old guy drove on the spare to work only to find out that afternoon that the spare went flat. Even more frustrated, the old man drives the car to a nearby auto shop to get both tires serviced. Later that night, this time Arthur slashed 3 out of his 4 tires. Remember when the old guy was on the phone getting instructions on how to get his tire fixed? Well, before that he had called his car insurance company to get someone to come out and fix his tire. He was very loud, and the gist of the conversation was that the insurance company wouldn't come out and fix his tire, and couldn't get them insured because all 4 tires were blown out. They said it would be easier and least expensive to just change the tire himself and get another. So, later that night, Arthur slashed the other 3 tires, save for the new one. Arthur wasn't there that following morning, but he knew that the old guy surely had a meltdown. That, and he didn't show up to the restaurant for a month. Second act. Piggybacking on the first act, Arthur would regularly check on the old guy's car. When all the tires were replaced, Arthur went to the old guy's house late at night and poured 1.5 gallons of sugar and bleach into the gas tank. His car had one of those manual gas covers instead of the modern button inside the car, so no one was none the wiser. In the morning, during Arthur's stakeouts, the old man started up his car and left for work, only to get halfway there before the car stopped working. So the old guy had to get his car towed to his house. The final act. Arthur got the old guy's name from the phone conversation and searched him on Facebook. He downloaded a couple of good pictures of him and created a few flyers. Due to the old guy's car being unusable, he wasn't able to come into the restaurant to do his usual crap. Pun intended. Arthur printed the flyers out and posted them all over the restaurant. The flyers had a picture of the guy, his name, and described what he did in the bathrooms for the past few months. A few days later, the old guy comes in with a friend. The friend goes ahead and orders while the old guy runs to the bathroom. One of the co-workers spotted him and notifies everyone there, including the friend. Old guy starts to do his thing in the stall until he sees the flyer with his face on it. He storms out of the bathroom, flyer in hand, angrily demanding for the person responsible to step up to him. Arthur steps up in his uniform and claims responsibility. The old guy begins threatening to sue for slander and emotional damages, and other offenses, to which Arthur simply says with an equally scat-eating grin, "Look, I don't care. I just want to ruin some poor fucker's day." Old guy's soul momentarily leaves his body as he realizes that the same guy he confessed his crime to weeks ago was one of the employees. The managers arrive and ban the old guy from the restaurant. Old guy threatens to ram his car into the windows, to which Arthur says, "Is your car a unicycle? Better check your tires, you poor fucker." Old guy then realizes that Arthur was behind the attacks. Banned from the restaurant, no hard evidence of Arthur's vandalism, and extreme embarrassment, old guy decides to bow out. Haven't seen or heard from him since. Unfortunately, fast forward a month and 2 nights ago, Arthur got arrested for fighting an off-duty officer at a convenience store. Like I said, Arthur is crazy. 5. There's a bit of backstory before I start. I am a 21-year-old Frenchman, and since I've obtained my high school diploma at age 18, all the things I tried during 3 years in terms of higher studies have turned out to be terrible choices. This led me into depression, as I valued myself as worthless, convincing myself that I won't be able to do anything in my life. I've never worked hospitality before and never had any kind of independence. I made a decision after my 3rd higher studies failure, which was going as far as I could from France. I ended up in Sydney last October. Since then, I needed to find a job and accommodation that I could rent. I used the $1,000 I had saved for the past 6 months to set foot in a backpacker hostel, while I was looking for a job and a room to rent in a flat. Over 3 weeks I looked on the internet, dropped my resume everywhere I could in the city, and yet no one was calling me back because I lacked experience. Then one afternoon, as my funds were dropping really low, I saw this ad for a French restaurant looking for waiters, even inexperienced ones, and would do all the training. I immediately called the restaurant at lunch during rush hour. With hindsight, this was a terrible mistake that I would end up hating a few months later. Whatever. At some point, the manager told me to come the next day for an unpaid trial of 3 hours and an interview. Little did I know the restaurant was 1 hour away from my hostel. I decided to give it a shot as I had no other opportunities. I went there, and for 3 hours I tried as hard as I've ever tried in my life. I was constantly focused on customers and getting the food out of the kitchen. I never had done this before and had obviously no experience in hospitality, and yet the manager told me I would be perfect for the job, as I was attentive to my surroundings and was taking great care of the customers. The interview was conducted in English, even though we were both French, and it went great as well. I always had this sentence in my mind my father tells me every time he sees me. Hard work will always pay off and lead you to success. So I've been hired and had to come back the next day. This was certainly one of the most emotional moments of my life. After struggling with depression and feeling worthless for months and months, I felt a true sensation of trust and being valued as a proper human being by someone I didn't know 3 hours before. Weeks passed and the training went well. I was improving drastically every hour I was on the floor, and the manager was really happy. I got along great with the team to the point I went to live in their flat 3 months afterwards. I went up on tips level as we split the tips according to the hours on our roster, and a level defined by the work you provided so far. Levels range from 1 to 4. I was level 1. Having my first tips was a great moment. A $6 moment, but still. A month passed and our barista had to fly back to France as her visa expired. Eventually, I have been offered a barista training by my restaurant, as they felt it would be a fitting reward for all the hard work. I could never have imagined learning so many things, and I was filled with joy when I served my first coffee ever to a real customer that would drink something I had done especially for him. At this point, I had gone level 2 on tips, and was getting around $30 to $45 in tips. This was great. I could finally start to save even more money. Something I've never done before. Paying a rent and saving monies were things I didn't know how to do a few months before that. At some point, my manager and the head chef had to go to Melbourne for abortion, as they were together and laws are more flexible out there. She told me she had entire trust in my abilities to run the shop during the 4 days she would be out there. I had to do daily reports for her, take care of sending orders for the deliveries and close the shop, make the till. She even gave me the responsibility to organize admin work on Sunday, which is double-checking rosters and staff hours. I did my best and followed her instructions. She came back and organized a meeting this evening. To show me her gratitude towards the hard work I've provided and my fast evolution and improvements, she decided to give me a higher level of tips, the level 4. This was so emotionally intense as I felt rewarded and trusted. These were feelings I've never felt before. Recognition and rewards from a manager you see as your example, and from whom I strive to provide the same quality of service. It felt great. I have discovered and learned many things since I became a waiter, and I still have many things to learn. I've had hard shifts from which I would wind up crying. I had great shifts with unforgettable and grateful customers. I shared many positive feelings with my co-workers and regulars. I also had to share negative feelings and seek help in others, and always found an attentive ear to my problems. Even though I stopped my studies, I will have to come back to France in August, but so far it was such an amazing experience to the point I've questioned my own career choice. This job is so wonderful and full of emotions. Every day is different, and every shift is a surprise in itself. I wanted to thank all the people working in hospitality for their hard work. When you get on the other side, you truly discover the reality of the job, and it makes you realize how patient and caring you have to be to provide a good customer care. Never give up on life. Never give up on work, as it will very certainly bring you joy, as it brought myself joy. Thank you again for listening to my story. I felt like I could share with you my little victory over life. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates number 49. You know, 3 more to go, and that will make a full year of doing these videos. That is, this specific series. Obviously, I've been doing other videos for quite a bit longer than that. Okay, let's see. Weekend, you guys will get this on Saturday. Streaming. I'm not sure about streaming this weekend. it seems like there isn't really a good time to do it for me. I tried to do one earlier in the week. I was sitting in the living room bored, and I thought I could do a stream. And it wouldn't work. It turned out it was actually down for a lot of people. I was down for several hours. It eventually came back, and I did like an hour. But yeah, so changing the day doesn't seem to make a difference, so I guess it's just do a stream and hope for the best. So if I do one, I'll try and give you a couple hours advance notice. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.